Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Vet Method podcast, where we bring team training concepts to practices who want to grow revenues through leveraging a high-performance team. My name is Sanjay Mangavai, and I'm based in the southwest of the UK. And today, I'm really pleased to be joined by Dr. Celine. Hi, Celine, welcome.
Hi.
So whereabouts are you today, Celine?
I'm in France. I'm spending a year in France with my family. I usually work and live in Quebec. Okay. Southern Eastern Canada. Mm-hmm. And we're spending a year in France now, close to Switzerland.
Oh, fantastic. And, you know, it's a real treat for me to speak to somebody in the morning, because most of my interviews are in the States or Canada or somewhere, and it's usually late in the afternoon. So, yeah, this is great for me.
So, same for me.
A little bit about Celine. She has been in small animal practice since 1999. She developed EUTHABAG, a pet body bag that impacted millions of people in critical moments of their life or career. And it is now used in 25 countries by thousands of practices. Celine, you know, I really love the idea of the whole EUTHABAG concept. When did it first come to market?
2016. So we're in our 7th year.
Okay, and you came up with the idea because of frustrations in practice.
Thank you. You're the first, but it is the question people ask me all of the time. Mm-hmm. And it's exactly it. Nobody came up with the answer like you did. It was frustration, just one after another. After I calculated about 3,000 to 4,000 euthanasia I performed before I came up with the idea. Mm-hmm. I just had this turmoil every time and just felt that was wrong and felt I was in cognitive disruption there, doing something I did not agree with. And thinking and feeling that veterinary medicine was stressful enough. I didn't need any more stress in my life. And I was so proud of everything else I was doing in vet med. I think we're like champion of the world, providing the best care I know. And I'm like, I got to find something. And then I looked up on my computer and I'm like, okay, looking for body bags online, you know, and I'm like, oh, if somebody comes and if the police comes to my place and look at my history on my computer, they're going to think I'm planning a massive murder. I was just looking for, I'm like, I need to find something better for my clients. Couldn't find anything, nowhere. And then I like, okay, oh, wow. Well, I can figure this out. I'll design it and market it. You know, I'm a vet. I can figure it out. I'll read the book. I don't know how to market. I don't know how to sell, but you know, I'll figure it out. That's how it all started. Yeah.
Wow. I just want to say, well done, because, you know, ideas are common, but, actually doing something about it, implementing them is pretty uncommon. So so you've done a good thing there. Okay, so
but I just didn't know what I was getting myself into, and I compared it with having children. I knew it was going to be challenging, I knew it was going to be hard, but I had no clue how challenging it was going to be. So there was a lot of innocence in there. Well done. So the title of the podcast is Feeling Compassion Satisfaction. And we're going to talk about that for the next few minutes. Okay, Celine, so starting with question number 1, who is your ideal client? Basically, any veterinary professionals, you know, from the receptionist to the veterinarian, with also including the veterinary nurse, of course, often dealing with these beloved pets' bodies. They're all providing compassionate care every day and often performing euthanasia or having to deal with people losing their pet on a daily basis as well.
Okay, so basically anyone who has to consider or deal with and manage compassion, particularly euthanasia in pets. Fantastic, perfect. That leads us nicely on to question number 2. What's the biggest problem your clients face and how do you solve it?
I help decrease the level of stress around euthanasia and feeling compassion satisfaction by giving the best end-of-life care to honor that bond and the relationship with the family. We're helping getting rid of the turmoil by putting a beloved pet in a rubbish bag. We're also reducing the risk of professional complaints, as euthanasia is one of the most common ground for complaints. Mostly because of miscommunication, not because the pet wasn't euthanized. But the client perception is major for euthanasia, as people are in the middle of a an emotional tsunami and don't understand everything, and we don't speak exactly the same language. So that's what we solve. It's all the stress around euthanasia.
Yeah, and obviously euthanasia, as you mentioned, is a time of high emotions, and a certain vulnerability of people. In that room, the emotions, they become very vulnerable, and they remember how you make them feel. It's not so much what you do, and it's the small things sometimes, and
yeah, the devil is in the details. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, let's get on to question number 3. What are the typical symptoms that people experience with their problem? Their kind of pain points.
Yeah, well, it's just unnecessary stress. It's value break, cognitive disruption, impostor syndrome, compassion fatigue, burnout. As you said, because there's so many details to manage when we're dealing with these families, dealing with this pet as well that we want to pass without any stress, without any pain. Well, there's so many details to think about and take into account that this is what people feel. Veterinary professionals, because of a lack of education, just don't feel they're bringing the best. And we're all perfectionists. We need to be on top of things. We need to feel professionals. And because we're missing education, we don't feel totally competent, especially with a family in tears when you were never taught how to deal with them, how to look at them, how to talk with your body, how to work on how you feel personally, because people will feel that. So there's just so many things to deal with, and no education, which doesn't make any sense. We get education on things we'll never do in vet medicine, and we get no education for this experience that we will all deal with on almost a daily basis. So it's just so important for vet professionals. As we are perfectionists, we need to be skilled and we need to be taught how to do things.
Absolutely. You're so right. There's a certain amount of emotional fatigue that veterinary professionals can have, especially as euthanasia seems to be such a common thing that we do in the practice, almost the most common procedure that we do, sadly. But the RCVS recently said, quoted that I think 85% of pets will need euthanasia these days. And so we have to somehow be able to manage the emotions for the client, but also for ourselves,
Exactly. And manage is the right word, because we have to deal with it. That's something we cannot avoid. And we have the empathy, we have the emotional intelligence, we have the compassion, we have everything. We just don't know what to do with it. We don't know how to show that to people. So we just need to be guided to be able to feel that all that we're missing, I find, is that to feel that we're doing the right thing, because we love to be following guidelines. We love to be told that we are, following the practice standards and so on. We love to be in line with the rules. But with euthanasia, there are no guidelines. It's just like, do how you think it's good. But because we don't speak the same language, we're not in the same pants as our clients, we don't do the thing in an optimal way necessarily. Or let's say with our instinct, because we're talking another language and we see euthanasia on a daily basis. They will see it maybe once in their life, once every 5 years, 10 years. So we really just need to change our glasses.
Absolutely. That is so true, Celine. That brings us on to question number 4. What are the common mistakes that people make when trying to solve their problem? The things they thought might work, the things they try but fail.
Yeah, well, there are not so much training about euthanasia around. There's training, there's so much CPD available free everywhere on everything, renal failure and Lyme disease and so on. But around euthanasia, there's not much. And I came up with that training because I couldn't find anything that resonated with me that was practical. I needed something practical. So often what people are told is, giving vague guidelines such as, well, you need to be empathetic with families. You need to show you care. You need to give pre-euthanasia sedation. Okay, well, how does it really, how do I do that? So veterinary professionals are analytical, introvert, perfectionists. with very little education on how to talk to clients, especially people in tears that experience the most stressful experience of their life, choosing that moment for their beloved companion to die. So they need key sentences to say. So this is what I share in those webinars: key sentences, doses in meg per kg, not just a sedation. What molecule, with which one, and how do I give it, and also so recipes and protocols to follow, and things that you can use the next day. And for example, say, instead of saying just being pathetic, saying, for example, for the longest time, I used to say, he's not going to suffer. Well, instead of that, now I say, he's going to be comfortable. So it's such a detail. It's one word, but it's a world of difference, right? So for so many years, I thought saying he's not going to suffer was fine, but we can really do better by saying he's not going to suffer. He's going to be feeling the best he's been feeling in months because of the product I'm going to use. He's not going to feel any pain. He's not going to feel any stress. So this is just, tweaking a little bit things to make it more positive. So just practical tips, because I've done so many trainings myself to come up with all these tips, but often, I couldn't find an answer on what to say. No, you're absolutely right. You hit it on the point when you said, people give very vague descriptions. What does being empathetic actually mean? And so what we do need is the kind of thing you're talking about: actual words to use, actual things to do, setting up the room, etc., etc. All those things matter, and will convey some empathy, some compassion, and no one teaches that. So well done for coming and doing that. I just hope that a lot of vets get to listen to your webinars and listen to that advice, because it's sorely needed. A big mistake for me was just thinking, when I first graduated, was thinking just focusing on the technical bits, just be able to give the injection. No one managed the emotions, for the client. I was just happy if I successfully got a vein, and put a catheter in it or something. But the more difficult part is actually managing people's expectations and emotions at the time. Right. Thank you. So question number 5, what is one valuable free action that someone listening to this can implement that will help solve that problem? What's your top tip, Celine? Well, I was just going to say, just have your staff take our free CPD that are, by the way, race approved, because there's so many tips. And I was going to share my best tip and our last question, my valuable tip. So it was just because there's so many members in our teams now. It's getting bigger and bigger, and there's so much things to talk about around euthanasia. So I think everybody needs to have the same training, so we can hope that any clients that comes to our practice have the same kind of experience, same kind of standard. So because as you mentioned, I had absolutely no training in vet school on the science of death and the art of euthanasia. So I had to learn it the very hard way, being yelled at by clients and providing substandard experiences, to say the least. And I had some really bad ones that could have been prevented, just like a disease with a vaccine, just with a couple of hours of just good education. It was extremely stressful as a new grad. You remember that, right? The first ones you had to do, and you never get to practice that in at school or even when you're a student in the practice. So for 15 years, I really struggled, not saying the right things, feeling stressed, guilty of not providing the best, not using the right pre-euthanasia sedation for that right patient, not using the right vein. Something as simple as that, I figured after years of practice, I could use a vein. So that could be my best tip. After 10 years, I figured I could use the veins in the hind limbs instead of being in the front, in the animal's bubble, and with the client looking at me, using the cephalic vein. After a while, I use the saphenous vein in the back. I could be there with my vet nurse. We're both together in the back, quiet, and the client is in front kissing his pet. Everybody's happy. And what a world of difference, just choosing the right vein. So I put all of my little tips that I find along the way in a 7-hour CPD platform. And the website is veterinaryeducation.com. We'll talk about that later. And now the difference is I know how to provide a positive euthanasia experience. People will forever remember, as you mentioned, and be grateful for.
Yeah.
Then I feel I'm making a difference. The euthanasia I'm going to lead is not going to be the same as the one at the other side of the street. This is going to be very different. And this is what pulled me in vet med when I was 8 years old. I just wanted to make a difference in pets' life and people's life. So like this is like my child's dream coming, so now when I see a euthanasia on the schedule, I'm not like, oh, is it going to go well? Is he going to bark? Is he going to growl? I'm just like, oh, I'm going to be providing the best experience I can. And I cannot control everything. And the important is just to feel that I'm doing my best, So instead of being a stress, this is now bringing me compassion, satisfaction that really actually fills up my tank instead of emptying it. So it's a total, it's inverse. It's the reverse of what it was before when I started. And now I feel fortunate to share these unique moments of great humanity. I feel alive. And you experienced that in your career as well. At first, you want to perform surgery. You want to do something very challenging and a technical, point of view. But then as I grow older, I'm like, no, I just want to have great experiences with people. I want to share with them, So I just love that, how this has changed in my career. And I was not expecting to be a euthanasia, specialist when I was at vet school at all, but I really enjoy doing that now, bringing light to this topic that has been a little taboo or left over, and just, nobody really wants to, they just want to get away with it, do it, run to the freezer and just forget about it, go see that puppy, But now I think that by bringing light to it, we can all benefit or feel better in something that we can't avoid anyways.
Yeah, no, what you're saying is so true, and it resonates with me that, I think we're still one of the only professions licensed to take life. I know it's changing in human medicine at the moment, but it is a privilege to be able to do that humanely and kindly, compassionately. And we get more sentiments of gratitude from ending life than to actually extending it, with treatment and surgery. And
beautiful cards, handwritten, chocolate, everything. It's the only one that has survived the internet. You still get cards that are handwritten, not for parvo, right? But always for euthanasia.
Always for euthanasia. When you learn to do it correctly, people do appreciate, how it was done. So, thank you for that, Celine. There's gone to question number 6. Only 2 questions to go. What is one valuable free resource that you can direct people to that will further help with them?
Well, I would direct you to our website, EUTHABAG.com. So it's not just a website on a product being a veterinary body bag. It's really, we want it to be a carrefour, a resource, somewhere where you can get some resources as for the veterinary team as well as for the families. So we have a section for families to help them take the decision, how to deal with the guilt, find some support groups. We have coloring pages for kids. We have quality of life questionnaire. We have poems, handouts on how to bury a pet. So this is all free. You can all download it. And they're really simple resources that make a world of difference. Often when I see clients, I tell them, look, you're in front of probably the only vet that will explain you how to bury a pet. Often, people want to bury their pet. They don't know what they're getting themselves into. They're totally ignorant. They've seen it in a movie and they think it's going to be so beautiful under the tree. They have a golden retriever. I mean, it's going to need to be a meter deep. And, but under a tree, there's going to be rocks, there are going to be roots, but they cannot guess that this is going to be. So I tell them, how, and then they go, oh my God, I had no idea. Plus now there's a big liability issue around home burial because several pets have been anesthetized or passed out because they digged up another pet, ate the pet, especially exotic pets. I just read a story on the Facebook group where they performed euthanasia on a guinea pig. People went back home, buried the pet. The family dog, digged up
Oh,
guinea pig.
oh,
Yes,
yeah,
finally he got him.
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
ate him, passed
Oh,
out. I mean, imagine this
wow.
is liability. The
Yeah.
vet was responsible. And the vet, we all day leave people with a poisonous,
Mm,
it's a dangerous, it's an animal. So we shouldn't do that anymore
yeah.
in 2022. We should inform the people. So we have a form, at least communicate verbally. But when,
Mhm,
I think that they don't compute very much because of all these emotions. So I have a
mhm,
handout I give them.
mhm,
And then it's in the file that they were informed they should not do it, or at least, they would know how deep, how far from a water intake,
mhm.
and what kind of soil. I
Yeah.
had a client once told me, oh, he was not expecting to lose his pet. It
Mhm,
was very sudden. And then he said, well, I'm just going to bury him. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Where are you going to do it? I'll just do it in the sand pit, on my farm.
mhm,
Like, you
mhm.
can't do the sand pit. No. Oh, I had no idea. So if I would have just left him go with his pet, who knows who would have digged him? And, so we're putting ourselves at risk by leaving these people going back home with a poisonous,
Yeah.
danger. Yeah, so that's something that you can find, and you can customize it, depending on your area, the legislation in your area, and so on. So just also helping people deal with the guilt they experience. I think this is the enemy
Mhm.
to fight. With people, just they come, they're a ball of guilt, and I just want to undo that ball and make them feel like they've done the biggest. They've shown the biggest proof of love to their pet by taking
Mhm.
the hardest decision of their life. Some people say it was harder than buying a harder decision than
Mhm.
buying a house or divorcing, quitting their job. I mean, this is big. We have
Yeah.
to remember that
Yeah.
every pet that comes to us, these people went through all this hassle of taking the
Mm.
decision. So we have questionnaires on, quality of life, so people can have a bit more of perspective on that decision than if we just tell them, well, you should think about it. Well, think about
Yeah.
it. You don't have the perspective, you don't have the knowledge. So at least if we give them a questionnaire, then they'll be able to talk about it, in the family, with their friends, over time. And then this is professional. This is providing, professional care, not just letting them
Yeah.
with that decision.
Absolutely. No, Celine, thank you. And that sounds like a really valuable resource on your website, euthabag.com. And we'll include that in the link that will be associated with the podcast so people can access it. And it sounds like a complete resource that deals with all, or at least most of the aspects surrounding euthanasia, which again is, like you mentioned, is sadly not taught well enough.
Yeah,
Um,
and also one thing I didn't mention, but how to talk about pet loss with kids,
yeah,
coloring pages for kids, and yeah. So and then books as well.
yeah.
We yeah.
Yeah, and you just highlighted that it's never too late to learn about it, about stuff, because in my
There's always
ignorance,
more to
yeah,
learn.
yeah, I'm I never fully appreciated that we're sending when owners take their pets home to bury, that they are full of this poison that we've just euthanized the pet with. So wow, that's an important bit to consider. But thankfully, the days of the back garden being a pet cemetery with more than one pet are declining. At least, that's
Yeah,
my
very
feeling.
fast.
Yeah, in the UK. So, but it still happens, and there's so many emotions surrounding that. And I always encourage the vets to, you mentioned guilt. Owners don't even want to bring up euthanasia, and vets would rather not talk about money or euthanasia, the two worst things that a vet would talk about in practice. They try and avoid it, but we do need to teach vets to start bringing up the euthanasia option, that clients are dreading anyway. So that's an important bit. So thank you, Celine.
Oh, and,
Yeah.
and one more little thing on
Mhm.
liability. There was also a case in Canada where somebody that bought a property from somebody else sued them because it was a pet cemetery in the
Ah,
backyard, and they wanted to build a gazebo or I don't know what, and then bones were flying up. Anyways, they sued the person that
wow.
sold the property, and they
Yeah.
won because it was something that they did not mention. So that's something that is on our handout as well. Mention it. If you sell your property, just make sure you tell the buyers that there are a couple of pets, something simple. But again, we're responsible of everything
Yeah.
as vets. But that's one more thing we need to
Well,
think about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The legal ramifications extend well beyond the consulting room. So, no, thank you for mentioning that. That's an important bit, to be fair. And finally, Celine, question number 7. What's the one thing that I should have asked you that I failed to do?
Oh, well, I was actually coming back to what was the tip I would like to share, but the biggest game changer for me was to provide deep, profound sedation to the pet prior to euthanasia. I used to think it was okay to have the pet kind of interact still with the owners before euthanasia. I thought that was a great idea. It took me 15 years to figure out that wasn't that great of an idea. It's much better if we have an animal that is totally out. It calms the animal, it calms the family. You notice that when it's and then us, the veterinary team. So everybody feels better, and there's no more anticipation of a reaction from the pet. Is he going to withdraw his paw? Is he going to scream? Is he going to growl? Is he going to bite? So just getting rid of all that anticipation was such a game changer for me. And then in how do you get there? What is the best protocol to get a deep sedation in a dog or a cat? They're all different. So that's something I learned from Mary Gardner, one of the founder of Lap of Love. Yeah. And I just spread this recipe. It's also very affordable. And then just taking that has reduced my level of stress using deep sedation before. And then, it's a better transition for the family as well. It took me a while to figure this out, but imagine you bring your pet, he's like totally awake. You give a sedation, he's a little out. And then once you get started giving me Pento, 3 seconds later, he's dead. Like this is so abrupt. This is so fast. And this is something families complain about. I just didn't have time to, they cannot imagine it's going to go so fast. Only us know that. But at least when they're totally out in deep sedation before, then instead of being shocking, it's like, oh, it was so beautiful. He passed in his sleep. We all want to pass in our sleep. So again, it's just a little subtle change that made a world of difference in my experience. And also it gives you the possibility to use alternate injections ways, such as intrahepatic, intrarenal, whatever, if you can't find the vein. So you have one more. So this can be very valuable, even if it's only once in your career, once in your year, that you can use another way because you can't find a vein. Wonderful. One more tool in your toolbox.
Yeah. Wow, Celine. And I couldn't have come up with a better tip than the one you've just given. Sedation certainly changed the way I do things. It removed the anxiety, a lot of, not all the anxiety, but the anxiety of the process, at least the technical bits, and even as a vet, I've, when the pet was sedated, it was a sigh of relief for me. I didn't feel the pressure sometimes of even hitting the vein, because the animal had some pain relief on board. It was sedated. It wasn't reactive, especially if the owners are going to be present for the actual euthanasia. So thank you for that. That is a really good tip. Wow, Celine, thank you. You gave us some really valuable insights about how to honor the bond in reality between the vet, the vet team, the pet, and the family, and that bond is strengthening all the time. And I'm sure our listeners will take away some really valuable ideas and tips. And once again, Celine, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to join us today.
It was a pleasure. As you can see, I could talk about euthanasia all day long. I love to share about this very delicate topic. And I really like your concept. It's a great idea.
Thank you very much, Celine.